right, everybody, welcome back to the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down movies and give our critique all in one take. My name is Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and best friend,
Cramer, England.
All right, and today...
I got the timing on that one.
You got the timing, you nailed it.
I got the timing.
M. Night Shyamalan has a new movie out. He's back with Trap, a new M. Night Shyamalan experience with Josh Hartnett. The 90s boys are coming back in their 40s and 50s. Yes. And because it's M. Night Shyamalan time at the movies again, we thought we would take you all the way back and look at an early Shyamalan joint. This is maybe the best Christian propaganda film I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is what year was this made? 2002. 2002.
Yeah.
Signs from 2002.
Yeah, we didn't want to take the easy route and do The Sixth Sense. We may at another date, but Signs.
I think we could have done The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, and those would have been the obvious choices.
Yes.
But I think these are like these first three movies. It's like The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs. He was on the fast track to being like, he was going to be the guy. He was going to be Christopher Nolan. He was going to be
Spielberg. Yeah. He was. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of shots in here. The whole movie feels like he is going to be the next guy. Unfortunately, this I feel like was the last movie that he felt like the guy. And then it started to go down. After Village was like where the cracks started showing. At least
I will forever be a Village apologist. I'm just such a cinematography guy, and Roger Deakins shot The Village.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And James Newton Howard's score in The Village is just like, it's like James Newton Howard was crushing it with the scores for all of Shyamalan's early films.
Yes.
His score in this movie, Signs, is so good. But the Village score is like one of the best. And Bryce Dallas Howard, that was like where we were introduced to her as an actor, and she absolutely
it's a breakout role,
dominates that movie.
She does.
And so a lot of people make fun of The Village. I'm a huge Village apologist.
I need to watch it again.
Yeah.
The only thing about The Village was the ending, which again, we could, that's the thing. It just did not stick the landing. Everything else I loved. I even knew what the twist was going to be. But I still, anyway, it was just the ending. But it is, there's a ton about that movie that I love, and the cinematography is probably the best of it.
His cinematography in these early movies was just so good. Like, in all of them. Like the thing that sticks with me about Unbreakable is the opening shot. That's between the train seats, and it's just the camera just floating back and forth.
Yeah, it moves back and forth.
And it's this Oner, the Oner podcast.
There we go.
We love Oners.
Yes,
it's this opening Oner that's just going back and forth between David Dunn and this woman that he's trying to flirt with on the train. And it's all being shot from the perspective of a little girl in the seat in front of them. And it's such a great shot. But Tak Fujimoto, who shot Signs.
Yes.
I'm like, is he still around? Is he still doing stuff?
That's what I always wondered too, because I always saw his name, Tak Fujimoto. You recognize the name. First of all, I started showing Ferris Bueller to my son. Tak Fujimoto was the DP on Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Yes. I was like, wow, that's amazing. He was around forever, and now I don't know. I need to look him up, but he's a great cinematographer. This movie was shot beautifully, and the scene, like you're talking about, there's a lot of Oners in this scene, pretty short Oners, but it's beautifully shot.
So he's a lot older than I thought he was. He was born in 1939, and it says that he retired in 2015. It doesn't say anything on the internet about him having died, but it's like, we just don't really see Tak Fujimoto anymore as a cinematographer. But boy, every time I did see that he was behind the lens on a movie, I was always like, oh, okay, this is at least going to look good.
Exactly.
And Signs is a very well shot film.
Yes. Beautiful. There's so much about this movie that is done well. The cinematography, the blocking, everything. There's a lot to love about this movie. And at this point in Shyamalan's career, he was hitting on all cylinders. And I feel like, I haven't seen every one of his movies lately. There's a few I've missed, but I feel like he's made a change, and I feel like that's what's missing. Like some of his unique blocking and cinematography just isn't really there, or isn't as present as much.
I think there was a thing that I mean, when you hear him talk about his career, he talks
Right.
about the fact that the anchor in all of his movies and throughout his career, people think it's the twists, and he's like, sure,
Right.
whatever. There's these twists. There's these kind of tropes that you can expect from an M. Night Shyamalan film. But
Yeah.
what he's, in his own words, what he has always endeavored to make is genre films at the highest level of cinema. That it's like, just because it's a genre film, just because it's an alien invasion film, or just because it's a monster movie, or just because it's a ghost movie, doesn't mean it can't be elevated. So I kind of think that he was like the beginning of what A24 and Ari Aster are trying to, and Jordan Peele are trying to do with like elevated horror, this kind of idea of like elevating genre films to these kind of very artfully made. And it seems like he's still making genre films, but he sort of decided to forget about trying to elevate them. And more his films just sort of feel like they're leaning into like B-movie schlock, which is fine, because if you can sort of tune yourself to just go, hey, just go to the movie and have a good time and just have fun, that's fine. But it's like he started out as this director who really seemed like he was trying to elevate the form. And there's nothing about the movie Trap that it feels like he's trying to elevate the form of the thriller or challenge the audience, or it's a very by the numbers, straightforward thriller. And it's I found Trap to be kind of just I kind of hated that movie, but it's like there's nothing about the movie that feels like he's trying to do something with the form or with the genre. It's just sort of like here's a straightforward kind of stupid thriller. And I don't know. I mean,
I totally agree with what you're saying. It almost seems like he's done his career backwards, where he kind of he's not really challenging. He's not really finding the deeper meaning in some things. And it just kind of has gone back. He's just kind of going to the surface level. But this movie definitely has a much deeper meaning to it, which is great, and which I really enjoyed.
I'll defend for the rest of my life these first three films, and I know that he made two films before The Sixth Sense, but the first three films where the world was sort of introduced to him, I'll defend my entire life The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable as Signs as really, really well made movies. Really, really well crafted films.
Yes.
Should we get into it? Let's get into Signs.
We'll get into Signs. All right, we'll get started. All right, so it starts out kind of old school. Starts out with the credits. I do love this too. It starts out with just credits and this amazing score by James Newton Howard.
This is very Hitchcockian. This is very like this. It's very 1960s cinema of like you're gonna listen to the score for about 2 minutes and we're going to do a prolonged title sequence. And it really sets a mood immediately. It does.
Because the score is what sets everything. And this is what I found interesting too, because I remember this. They used the score in the trailer, which when you're making a movie, the score is usually what comes last. So you can't really use the score. And if I remember correctly, M. Night Shyamalan was very detailed with his storyboards. And a lot of times they could start on the score early. And I wonder if that's what happened with this, if he just kind of had James Newton Howard start the score. Anyway, they used it in the trailer. They use it here. It completely sets the tone. Everything is perfect for this movie. Just the strings and all the score is amazing. And it really gets you into the feeling. It makes you tense. It builds the tension and everything. It makes things creepy. It does everything starting out right at the beginning with the credits. There's nothing going on, just the credits, but you already get into the mood with the score, which is awesome. So we get into the movie first, and Graham wakes up. Graham is our main character, played by Mel Gibson. Very fitting character with a very fitting character arc for Mel Gibson, who's a pretty Christian or known Christian.
This is also like it might be the last movie that I can remember really enjoying Mel Gibson as an actor.
Yeah, I'd have to go through and see,
Yeah.
but this is definitely when it kind of started tailing off for him too.
I feel like his heyday as an actor was probably like from like the Lethal Weapon movies through to around here, the early 2000s. I think it wasn't long after this that his career started to be embroiled in controversy and stuff.
Right,
I don't think I believe Signs was pre getting pulled over and saying that Jews run the world and stuff. But I feel like everything I see him in as an older actor, when he shows up in movies today, I've watched a few movies in the last 5 to 10 years that he was in, and it just seems like I don't ever really see anything from him that's like, oh wow, he's still got acting chops. It's not that he's bad. It's just this is the last time I really remember being like, there was a moment where this guy was one of the top actors in Hollywood.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was an A-lister for sure. And I think I feel like he's gotten to the point he makes a lot of movies for international markets, and I feel like he's almost wanting to direct more because he's still a great director.
He's a hell of a filmmaker.
Yes, he's a great filmmaker. He's done some great movies even in the past few years. So I feel like he's almost like, okay, maybe I won't worry so much about acting and I'm going to get into directing. I have no idea if that's true or not. That's what I feel like.
Think what you will about the guy and about his politics. I definitely have opinions about him, but what I can say, and this is the thing about like anybody who knows my online presence knows that I'm very politically active and knows I am very opinionated. I'm all right with this movie being as faith forward as it is because it's well made. Mel Gibson is a good filmmaker. Apocalypto is a very well made film. Right. I mean, he so. Yeah.
And obviously this movie is very Christian, but I don't think it was not advertised as a Christian movie.
No.
And even still, I don't think I would even categorize it in that Christian genre because it's very much, it's about a person's faith, them losing their faith and gaining it back, but it's not really preachy. Like it's just about the person.
There's no dogma in this movie.
Yeah,
there's nothing that's
great.
There's nothing about one specific religion over another or trying to sell you on one specific interpretation of biblical doctrine over another. It's not about that. It's not about it's not pushing the idea that you should convert to Christianity or whatever. That's not what the movie's about.
Exactly.
It's just about a character's journey through grief and regaining faith after a process of immense grief and immense trauma. Anyway, movie opens. It's not preachy, which is really great. It's just about faith, and you could apply it to a lot of different things. It's obviously more Christian, but anyway, we'll get into that more. So he wakes up, he kind of like hears something, and then he's in the bathroom. You see that there's a cross on his wall that has been taken off. You can see the outline of a cross. So visual storytelling,
very visual. This is the thing that I wanted to talk about too. This movie sets up, first of all, this movie is just a giant setup to an amazing payoff. So there's so much setup, which I love. This is not a negative critique at all. This movie sets everything up very, very well and very efficiently in this first act. So you see the cross is off the wall. So there's obviously like, why is there was a cross there? What's going on? He hears his kid screaming, so he runs out. We're introduced to Meryl, who's played by Joaquin Phoenix, does an amazing performance in this movie. He's just kind of like a funny comic relief character.
You never see him really do this at all in anything else. Like I was watching this movie going, there's nothing there. I cannot think of another Joaquin Phoenix performance that is like this, that is where he's kind of a jock and he's kind of dumb and he's kind of, he does great. He's got he's funny and he's kind of the comic relief, but he does actually have some really great moments where the fact that he's the one playing it makes it hit and land so much better. Yeah. Just because he's such a talented actor. So anyway, they both go outside, they run outside, they find their kids. This was the interesting thing too, is so he's got two kids, Morgan, played by Rory Culkin, and then Bo, played by Abigail Breslin, which I have to say on a side note, Bo reminds me so much of my youngest daughter. It was kind of crazy. The way she acts, the way she talks, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my daughter. So it kind of like also
it added something new for me on this rewatch. Anyway, sorry,
I was just gonna say too that like M. Night with these first three films, with all three movies, with The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable and this movie, and most famously with The Sixth Sense, because Haley Joel Osment was nominated for an Oscar for that movie. But he sort of was known in Hollywood as like the child actor whisperer. Like somehow this young director, M. Night Shyamalan, this young writer director, was pulling out performances out of kids that were so mature and grounded. And they're in all three films. The kid that's in Unbreakable, who's also the kid from Gladiator, who's is great in that movie. And these two kids in Signs are so good. And it's just like, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what his secret sauce was as a director in the late 90s, early 2000s, but he was like, the kids in his movies were knocking it out of the park.
I mean, because that's the thing. People in Hollywood, you don't want to work with kids and you don't want to work with pets or animals. And he did both. But anyway, he did a great job with kids, especially the first three movies like you talked about. So anyway, we see Bo and Morgan in there, just sitting there. Morgan says something very interesting. He starts out and he says, I think God did it. Again, setup. It's very subtle, but then he turned, Mel Gibson sees there are crop circles, huge crop circles in all of his crops. So this kind of sets everything in motion, right? It gets going from here. And let's see, sorry, I lost my place. So then they're like, they're looking at the crops. He calls, Mel Gibson gets the police over, the sheriff, I guess. She comes over and they're looking at the crops, trying to figure out what's going on. She keeps calling him father, right? And she's like, I don't know what's going on, father. And she calls him that like 3 or 4 times. He gets up. And during this time, his kids are trying to feed their dog. Their dog, oh, sorry, I jumped over this part. Their dog peed on the floor in the house. And Mel Gibson says, oh, I'll call Dr. So-and-so. And he's like, he's not for vets. He's not a vet. Right? He's just a normal doctor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which again, he's like, I don't want to call the vet. Why is he not wanting to call the vet? A good little
there's
foreshadowing setup.
Everything in this screenplay is tied to story, and it's not done in a way that feels like it's like it feels normal and natural. And
it feels very organic. Absolutely. And so
great shot by Tak Fujimoto here with Mel Gibson standing up in the middle of this crop circle with the police officer over his shoulder and saying, Caroline, please stop calling me father. And then but it's a great shot, the way that this is framed and the lens that he uses here. That's almost like a fisheye.
Which comes back later, and I'll talk about that later. But so the dog peed. He's talking to the officer, and the kids are trying to get the dog to drink some water. And this part, you find out that Bo has this weird tick with water. She's like, there's something wrong with it, And he's like, oh, the water's fine. They start feeding the dog. The dog gets angry. Then we cut back to Mel Gibson. He says, please don't call me father. He says, I don't hear my kids playing. So they walk over, or they kind of run over, and Bo is hiding in the playhouse, and Morgan had to kill the dog. The dog went after. He said that he goes out. He was going to kill Bo, so he had to kill him.
You know what I realized we forgot to do at the beginning of this is just our regular spoiler warning. But
oh, sorry, Well, we've only spoiled the first act.
Yeah, but if you haven't seen Signs from 2002, this is what we do on the podcast. Spoilers for all of our podcasts.
Again, a 22-year-old movie.
Yeah, so spoilers.
20, we need to. You know what? We should just stop. Anything, we got to come up with a year. Anything over 15 years, 10 years, 5 years?
It's your fault.
It is your fault. So anyway, spoiler warning.
You wrote something in your notes here that honestly, I got to say, I'd never considered this in all of the years since I've seen this movie. I always just thought that the woman playing the
officer,
the police officer mentions that some animals have been acting weird around town. They're peeing on themselves and they're acting really aggressive like they do when there's a predator around. I just thought that the reason why Houdini, the dog in this scene, was acting weird is because he can just sort of smell that there's something not right, or that he can smell that there have been aliens rummaging around in the field. Yeah. You mentioned something in your notes, and I had never actually considered this, that there's actually an alien there right then that's about to harm the kids, and the dog is trying to protect the kids from the alien, but they can't see the alien because it's invisible. Right. And so they think that the dog's trying to hurt Bo. And I'd never even thought about that the alien could have been right there.
That's what I've always wondered. And I'm not saying, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm not saying that is what happened, but that's what I'm wondering. Like, that's kind of what I like to think. Dogs
I like
are always
that. That's scary.
Yeah, it is scary, because the aliens are there, and you never know, were they going to come up and just like grab one of the kids? You know, strange things are happening. So I like to think that the dog was going to protect them, and Morgan misinterpreted what was going on, because the aliens are invisible.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to choose to believe. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel like it is, because dogs are always protectors. Like, dogs can always sense things that humans can't. So
I like that.
That's what I'm going to choose to believe. Anyway, unfortunately, they do kill the dog. The dog,
I think there's a website called like doesthedogdie.com or something, but Houdini the dog in signs does die.
He does, unfortunately. So, but then let's see. Okay.
Bo wakes up Graham in bed. She says, "There's a monster outside. Can I get a glass of water?" Yeah.
It's like so cute. Again, my daughter wakes me up all the time, and that's how she sounds. So she says, "Can I get a glass of water?" He's like, "What's wrong with the water by your bed?" She's like, it's contaminated, or whatever she says.
Yeah.
He goes into the room, and she says again something like, "I heard you talking to mommy. Why do you do that?" And he says, "Well, it makes me feel better." And she goes, I like talking to her too. But she doesn't respond, right? So it's a cute little moment. And you can tell again.
I think this is the first time that the movie's telling us that like she's dead.
Yes, she's gone.
Because the movie could have been she left or they got divorced or, whatever. But this is the first time I think the movie says, without saying, mommy's not. No, mommy's not here. Yeah.
And it does. You're right. They don't specifically say it. This is the nice thing is there's a lot of movies that this movie you have to infer a lot at the beginning, but it makes it more intriguing. It draws your attention a lot more because you have to put the pieces together. And this is where, okay, his wife is dead. We don't know how, we just know that she's dead.
Yeah.
And then he looks out the window and he sees an alien. What he thinks is Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers.
It's a great shot.
It is a great shot, and it's scary. It's scary. So
this was one of those things that, like, do you remember this? That, like, in the theater, it felt like it was really clear that you could see this person on the roof. And then when the movie came out on DVD, I felt like there was like a thing where like they made the color. I don't know that. I remember talking about it growing up, being like, is it there? Or I think it's pretty there. Like, you can see a figure on the roof.
You can see a figure. I agree. The theater experience was a little bit different than watching it at home.
Yeah.
Some better, some worse. I'll get into that. But it was a little bit. I feel like it was a little bit different in the theater.
Yeah.
But he sees him. He goes down. He gets Meryl. And he's like, "Hey, they're here. We got to go run." They have this really funny scene where Joaquin Phoenix is like, "We're going to run around the house and we're going to yell and swear." And he's like, "Define swearing." He's like, "It doesn't come natural to me when I swear." Again, just kind of going into this, he was a pastor, but he's probably not now.
Yeah, people don't believe it when I swear. Yeah.
Yeah, which was really funny. They run around the house in opposite directions. Mel Gibson is yelling. It does sound very unnatural. "I am mad with anger," whatever he says. They come around the side of the house. The person is not there. And this person, they keep saying, jumped on the roof. And they're like that, they're pretty dumbfounded at what happened.
There's a lot in this sequence and early on in this film that reminds me of like E.T., when Elliot's in the backyard trying to he's hearing noises back there and there's something bumps by the swing and the swing is swinging, but you don't see what it is. And, and like, cause they have like a motion activated floodlight that turns on in the backyard. And then the garbage cans knock over, and it's got that whole feeling of like, what is it? What's back there?
Yeah. And they have a lot of, just like you said, they have a lot of shots like the swing or the corn kind of swaying. A lot of those shots that nothing really happens, but it's like, did something just walk in there? Like it kind of just heightens the tension. So it's a really great, funny scene, but they don't catch the person. The next day, the officer comes back, and they're trying to figure it out. Another kind of funny scene, but Bo keeps coming into the conversation, and she's like, "Can you get me another glass of water?" And this is where we really see that her tick. She puts water all over the room, like there's water cups all over. So we see this just all over the house, and he's like, Mel Gibson's kind of annoyed by it. But again, another setup that will be paid off later.
And he's trying to just say, hey, just watch TV and I'll be in there in a minute, and he says that the same thing's on every channel. I like that line too, where he just goes, she goes, hey, something's wrong with the TV. And he's like, well, just, I'll
change
the remote control's not working. Yeah, the remote control's not working. Well, then just change the channel on the TV. I did. Same thing on every channel. And that's fun. This is like the big reveal that they go into the other room. They see on the TV that like international news is the crop circles that are in their backyard are actually everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And they are, and there's a guy that's like, there's two options. It's either an extremely elaborate hoax or it's real. Yeah. And this is kind of like everybody starts really taking this kind of seriously. Like this is something is strange here. And so
at the officer's suggestion, she says, maybe you should get into town, get your mind off of what's going on TV. So he takes his kids into town. Yeah.
Yep. He takes kids into town. They go into town. Morgan gets a book about aliens, and Meryl goes to the recruitment office, I guess, for the army or whatever it was.
I like these characters in town. I like the guy in the bookshop that's obsessed with that thinks that the alien hoax has to do with selling soda because he's seen 12 soda commercials while he's been watching the news
have
coverage.
Seen 12 soda commercials.
Yeah, and then he goes, 13!
13! Yeah. I love the crazy cast of characters, yes.
And this guy at the army recruitment office is one of the best like day player. I like burned in my memory. I'm just like when I rewatched this recently, I was like, this actor, I have no idea who this guy is, but his delivery on these lines is so perfect, and his weird mouth and his
and he's just like stares at him. Yeah. And he's looking at him and he never blinks.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Making sure it's all clear.
Yeah.
For the rest
for the rest of them. Yeah. It's great because it's just also off-putting. Very strange. Yeah. Uh-huh. I did really like that scene though, because it is like, it's really strange. He's kind of setting up like this, they could be hostile. But then the other thing that right after this scene, another setup, we find out that Merrill played, minor league baseball.
You're Merrill Hass.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I still remember that. Boy, that thing had a motor on it.
Yeah. 507 feet. Right. Yeah. He's got the bat. He says, I've got the bat hanging up on the wall at home.
He's got the little league home run record,
No, it's the minor league. Minor league.
Not little league. Yeah. Minor league home run record. Yes. He goes, well, why aren't you playing in the pros, having beautiful women suck on your toes?
Yeah. Like so creepy.
Yeah. This weird guy.
Adds to the creep factor.
But then we get Michael Showalter, which is actually really fun.
This is the thing I did not realize. Yeah. Michael Showalter is Lionel Pritchard.
Yeah.
I did not realize that until because I was like, is that Michael Showalter?
Yeah.
I went and I saw, and then it said Lionel Pritchard. And I was like, oh, so that's who they think is doing this.
Yeah.
Kind of a little thing I picked up on this time that I never did before.
It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. While they're in town, everybody has a funny little scene. The kids are at the bookshop with the guy who thinks that soda commercials are being sold. Meryl has the funny interaction with the guy who's talking about girls sucking on his toes. And Mel Gibson gets stuck at the pharmacy talking to a girl who insists on telling him all of her sins because he used to be the pastor, even though he doesn't want.
Another good scene. Yeah. He's like, I'm not a father anymore.
Yeah. And that's a funny scene too, where she's just like, I'm scared about the end of the world with all of these crops,
I just got to get some stuff off my chest.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like Shyamalan always was pretty good at balancing and finding the right moments to fold humor into these screenplays. And I feel like in his later screenplays, the balance can be off a little bit, or those funny moments can arrive at places that feel clunky or feel like they hurt the tone of what he's trying to do, rather than because it feels grounding in this movie. It feels like this movie's tone is very serious from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it feels like those moments are needed to sort of cut the tension. And this whole sequence in town kind of helps to like give us some breathing room before we head into the escalating next acts.
Yeah. Yeah. And the girl, the pharmacist girl, played by Merritt Weaver, who's I think that's how you say her name. She did a great job. You see her a lot in other movies, but
she's great.
Really funny. The other thing that we find out from Lionel Pritchard, which again is a great setup. Meryl has the strikeout record. He would just swing at everything. and he,
I
Joaquin Phoenix
really,
goes up to him.
I like his answer. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's, again, it's like you could say that this is heavy-handed writing, but I like that his response is, like when the guy's like,
wrong.
why didn't you just pick your pitches, or and he just says, felt wrong not to swing. So there's just something in him that when he played baseball, every time the ball came his way, he just felt like he had to swing at it as hard as he possibly could.
Yes.
And his only response to it is, I don't know, it just felt wrong not to swing.
Felt wrong not to swing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which everything, right. This theme of does everything happen for a reason?
Yeah.
Again, goes into that, which great. So, all right. So they're in town that, Mel Gibson comes up and is like, I don't want you hanging out with Tracy Abernathy, the girl from the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Which is funny. But then they're all in the pizza place and they see M. Night Shyamalan, and they all stop and just stare at him. Again, we have no idea why.
Cameo.
Yes, the cameo.
This is another
a very
thing.
Effective cameo. He does a great job in this one.
And this is his biggest one so far.
Yes.
So the cameo in The Sixth Sense is quite small. The cameo in Unbreakable, I would say, is even smaller.
Yeah.
And then this cameo, I think, is his first pretty substantial one.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
It's short, but it's very, very important. And he actually, he does a great job in this movie with his cameo.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking around and he looks at everybody and his jaw kind of drops, and then he just gets in his car and drives away. So again, as the audience, if you've never seen this, you're wondering why are they staring at him?
And one of the kids, I believe, says, "Is that him?"
Yes.
And I think Meryl says, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And
so we're all kind of figuring it out. I mean, he's got something to do with it, but again, great setup.
They go back to the house.
Yes.
And there was an earlier thing where one of the police officer told them that they can use baby monitors as walkie-talkies. And so Rory Culkin's character has been carrying around this baby monitor, Bo's old baby monitor. And,
and they all get out of the car. He's like, I hear something. And they get out of the car and they all kind of touch hands and they hold it up to the air and they start hearing the weird alien language.
We used to do that all the time growing up.
I would always freak out Jeff. He never liked it, and I'd always go up behind him and
it's
like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah, it's sleepovers and like you've been about to go to sleep, and then you get close to his face and go,
"Yeah." It worked every time.
Look,
which is great.
Again, this is another element of this movie that I really like. I like the sound that these aliens make. I don't know what to call it, but I think that it's something that sounds like they did a lot with the sound design for these things that just feels alien.
It does.
It's sort of like the way that the heptapods in Arrival, like that they just sort of make these noises that are like boom, boom, boom. And it's just like, it should be, I think, alien. It should sound unlike any creature we have. And
it does. It sounds a lot like an insect to me. Like there are insect sounds and then just strange sounds that it sounds very alien. And I like that they do that and they play it up and it just sounds, it's creepy. Insects don't sound good, they creep me out. So goes into that. They hear the aliens
human-sized thing to talk like that is weird. I don't know. It's
not normal. Yeah.
So
they hear that signal. They're all kind of like into it. I mean, they all kind of see that something's going on. And then at the
Graham is, it's interesting because it's right for his character. Graham is really trying his very best not to believe that something extraordinary is happening. Even he gets these moments where they're holding up the baby monitor and he's hearing the sound and he's like he almost buys into it, and this is so right for his character. He doesn't want to believe that something unbelievable could be taking place. So he's really committed to the idea that whatever's happening, it's a hoax, that whatever noise they're hearing on the baby monitor, it's just some sort of interference or feedback. He wants to believe that everything has a logical explanation that he can fit into a neatly explained box.
Exactly. Yeah. He's really leaning into that. I think he also wants to keep his kids safe. He doesn't want them to Anyway, but yeah, he really wants that logical explanation. He's trying to, get everything off. Like he's trying to make it seem like this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, the next scene, he goes out and he goes into the corner. He's trying to feed the dog. The dog kind of barks at him, right? Almost like bites him. Again, was there an alien there? Who knows?
And the dog's barking at the cornfield too.
Yes.
Is barking really heavily at the cornfield. And so he goes, you know what? I'm going to prove that it's just some
kids.
It's just some hoaxsters out there, and I'm going to go catch them. And he walks out, and again, this is very the ET vibes with the flashlight but this scene is great. And again, great cinematography here. Tak Fujimoto. And great.
Because the cornfield is set up. It's shot amazing. You can't see too far. You can see some, but you can't see too far. And there's a lot of, rustling, and it's also kind of misty.
Yeah. And this movie's shot on film, and it looks great.
Yes.
It's like anytime you can shoot nighttime this well too, it's always really impressive. Yeah. And they shoot night really well in this film.
Yeah. And he goes out to the actual circle. He starts talking to someone like, this is all a hoax. I know it's all a hoax. But then he kind of goes back into the cornfield. He's going back, and he hears the voices. And he's looking, and he gets scared, and he drops the flashlight. And again, just adds to the tension. They keep showing the cornfield, and there's like nothing there, but he's like searching for something.
There's this great shot where the camera sort of zooms in on him while you're hearing the sound of the aliens, but it's coming from the cornfield toward him. And he turns around and looks at the cornfield, and it's just this close up of corn for like 3 seconds. Yeah. And you as the audience member sort of strain your eyes to be like, can I see anything in there? And knowing what on a repeat viewing, you're going, do they have anything CGI wise where maybe like a camouflaged face sort of moves? And you can't really say one way or the other, but it's a great little thing where it's like all they really were doing is just pointing the camera at the corn, but letting it hold long enough that you're looking for something. It's great.
Yeah. And so he turns around real quick. He drops his flashlight. It goes out. So he takes... he looks down, he's trying to look, grabs a flashlight, knocks it, the light turns on, he points it out straight, and you see a leg move into the corn. Great. You can definitely tell it is not a human leg.
Yep.
That's an alien leg. And he freaks out, he runs back into the house. Once he gets back into the house, this is one of these shots that I loved. It's a long take, and there's multiple layers. You've got a close up. Meryl is in like the foreground. He's just reading something. The kids are in the background. And then Mel Gibson comes into the midground, right? And he's just kind of like sits down. Meryl turns around, and they all kind of see that Mel Gibson, there's something wrong with him. And they all come in. It's a long shot. And he just says, okay, I think it's time to turn on the TV. Yeah. Again, this is just like a beautifully composed shot. It doesn't, but it's a long kind of one take. But again, just kind of having these different layers, it makes it look really beautiful. And it's a great shot.
It's just good composition.
Yep. But again, but this is Graham is making a choice. We're going to turn on the TV. We're going to find out what's going on. So he's kind of giving in to this. Something's happening, and I need to acknowledge it.
He can't really deny the evidence of his own eyes that, like, I just for sure saw
an alien,
a leg in the field that didn't look like it belonged to any kind of animal that I've ever seen in my life before. But let's just check the news. They turn on the news, and there are floating lights in the sky all over the world, and people are seeing them, and they're
and they're confirmed reports from multiple people. The government is saying it's not theirs. No one is taking credibility for it. So they're all kind of like, okay, this is going on. They're watching. Yeah. They're watching TV for a long time, and then we come to this conversation between Meryl and Graham.
This is probably my favorite exchange in the entire movie.
I agree.
Again, this is one of the reasons why I don't mind, as a person who is not religious, I don't mind the story being a story about regaining faith or anything. Because a scene like this, when it's written this well and it's acted this well and it's just good filmmaking, I just am like, I don't know, it works for me. It's great storytelling. It's really, really effective.
Yeah, it works for me too. And I mean, it's the acting is amazing. The writing is amazing in the scene. They basically start talking, and Meryl's like, I need you to tell me something good. Like, I need some help in the scene. or I need some help at this time. And Graham's like, well, what do you believe? And he basically says there's two types of people. There are people that when they see something that they can't explain, they think it means there's something bigger, and that it's all part of a plan. And so people are going to see this and think that, there's a God, and they're going to see or they're going to see some miracles. Right. Mm-hmm. He's like, and then there's another group of people that see this and there's a logical explanation for it. And it's just luck. There's nothing more than that. It is what it is. Right. Mm-hmm. They do this way better than I'm explaining it, but
yeah. But and then it's like, I mean, like and this is another example of like M. Night Shyamalan knowing right when to use comedy, because the scene's very like the way that Mel Gibson is talking to his brother in this scene. It's very, very intense because there's these two kinds of people, and the music's very intense, and the camera work. It's great lighting, where his face is half lit by the glow of the TV. And then it goes to Joaquin Phoenix, and you think he's going to have this like really profound response. And he tells this story about how he was about to make out with a girl at a party one time, and he realized he had gum in his mouth, and he took out the gum and put it in a cup. And right when he did that, she puked all over herself. And if he hadn't taken the gum out, she would have puked into his mouth and into his face. So that's why he believes in miracles. Yeah. And it's this really, and it's very well delivered by Joaquin. And it's also just like a really funny moment to cut through the tension.
Yes.
But then
But this is the best thing about the scene, because usually, like in some movies now, you have a serious scene and then it's undercut by a comedic one, which is fine, kind of alleviates the tension, and then they move on. This one, you cut it down with Joaquin Phoenix's comedy, but then it's brought right back to being serious because Mel Gibson says, well, there you go, that's what you need. And he's like, well, which one are you? And Mel Gibson says, we are all alone. There is no higher purpose. Like I'm the one who believes it's not all for a reason.
Yeah, he tells him, he goes, do you know what the last words my wife said were before she died? And he goes, she said, see, swing away. Yeah. And then and he goes, do you know why she said that? And he goes, no, I don't know why. And he goes, well, it's because the nerve endings in her brain were firing off, and a random memory of us at one of your baseball games popped into her mind, and she just thought she was watching you play baseball, and then she died. And he goes, and that's the last words that my wife said to me. And he's like, so no, we're not being watched over or taken care of, and it's, again, this is really, really cool writing, because it totally could be that she was just seeing that she was, then that's a totally good explanation and for why he would go, wow, what a cruel thing to have the last words that my wife says to me is she's just sort of like, her brain's just sort of melting and frying, and she's not saying anything important or profound. And that's why his faith is sort of crushed, and he looks his brother dead in the eyes and says, there is no one looking out for us. We are by ourselves. Yeah.
I love, and this also, the scene again, it sets up, okay, his wife died, but how did she die? She died in a way that she could say her last words. So it wasn't sudden. Right.
Yeah.
So amazing scene with just the whole theme, right? The whole theme of this really driving home that Graham does not believe that everything is connected, that, there's no higher power.
Yeah.
And then right after this scene is where we get the first dream sequence. I mean, I guess it's a dream. It's more of like a flashback. You could say it's dream or flashback, whatever.
Yeah, the movie's giving us bits and pieces of this last night of his wife's life.
He drives up. He drives up and he sees the officer, the same officer, Plasky or something. I can't remember her name, but she goes up and she's like, well, what do you know? And he's like, well, I know that there was a drunk driving accident. And she said, no, Ray wasn't drunk. He fell asleep at the wheel. And they say they're talking to his wife. And he's like, okay, what ambulance is she in? And all the officer says is she's not in an ambulance. And then Graham wakes up. And again, this is kind of where, okay, he wakes up. What's going on? We're still getting these little breadcrumbs. Great scene to kind of pull us through.
Gets a phone call.
Yep.
Here. Yeah.
And he goes in and he goes into the closet, and Meryl has moved the TV into the closet, and he's like, I didn't want the kids to watch TV. They get obsessed. And he's watching everything. And he says that there was a bird that hit, it's daytime. And he's like, the lights are gone, but they're still there. A bird hit and it just fell straight down. And so Graham is kind of like, all right, this is a little ridiculous.
Yeah, Meryl's getting obsessed. He's glued to the TV. Graham gets a phone call from a guy that we find out is who M. Night Shyamalan is. And
Ray Reddy.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm gonna go to Ray Reddy's house. And he said, I think he just called me.
Yeah.
So he goes to Ray Reddy's house, and he sees him outside of his house. And this is M. Night Shyamalan, a great performance. You can tell he's very distraught. And this scene, again, this is another really great scene. It's very much like they're not telling us what's happening. The two characters know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
There was something, and Ray is wanting to talk and basically ask for forgiveness from Graham.
I think it's clear enough in the dialogue that we're learning in this scene that Ray Reddy fell asleep at the wheel and hit Graham's wife with his car. And he's saying it was at the exact right moment. If it had happened, if I had fallen asleep 30 seconds earlier or 30 seconds later, I would have missed her. But at that exact moment, I fell asleep at that exact point when she was walking by, and he goes, it's like, the timing was just perfect, he says
it's as if it was meant to be.
Yeah, it's like it was meant to be.
Yeah, hitting up right after this conversation with Meryl and Graham, Ray Reddy comes in saying the same thing. Like, it's as if it was meant to be, as if I was supposed to kill your wife.
I will say that this was a thing to me that felt like I really like the screenplay for this movie. I really like a lot of the writing. This line for me felt unnecessary when he says almost like it was meant to be. I was kind of like, I think that you could tell us all of that stuff. Man, if I had just fallen asleep 30 seconds earlier or 30 seconds later, it wouldn't have hit her. But it was just just say that. And you don't need to say it's almost like it was meant to be. The way and it's something about the way that he delivers the line that feels like the movie a little bit too much in that moment. Is like, it's almost like it was meant to be. And it's like, it feels a little too, where I'm just kind of going, I think that you can deliver that information. And I, as an audience member, can infer that what is being communicated isn't it crazy that it was just the exact right timing? That if I,
that if I would have fallen asleep 30 seconds earlier, I would have just woken up with a bump on my head.
Yeah. But that's pretty nitpicky, right? Critique, but
it's valid though. I think you got a really valid point. It's probably one that it probably wasn't necessary, but it's a little nitpicky, but I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It could have done without it.
Yeah. Ray tells him that he's going to go to water because he's like, I think that they don't like water. All the places that these crop circles are showing up, all the places that the lights are showing up, they're not near water. My idea is they don't like water. And he also goes, oh, and by the way, don't go in my pantry. I locked one of them in there.
And he drives off.
Yeah, he drives off. And it's a great setup to
a great setup.
Great setup to a really cool scene.
I do want to backtrack just a little bit because I feel like this is actually I want to know what you think about this, because I felt like Mel Gibson was actually forgiving Ray for what's going on. He doesn't lash out at him. He kind of is like, okay, like, it happened.
But I also don't think he likes hearing it was meant to be thing.
Exactly.
Maybe that's why that line is good to have in there, because he's like, don't say that. Don't say that it was meant to be, that you were like, that's rude,
Yeah. But it does seem like he's actually forgiving him, which he's kind of like, again, his character is kind of teetering on the edge. It does seem like he forgives him.
And again, great acting from Mel Gibson here.
Oh yeah, you can tell he's holding back tears, like really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but then we have that great setup. Don't go in my pantry, because I caught one of them in there.
Yeah.
And he zooms off, and then we let's see, what is the order of events? Because he goes into the room. You see somebody walking in the pantry.
Yeah, we in the audience know there's somebody in this pantry. Like,
you
we
hear them walking. You see the shadows.
Yeah.
Someone's in there.
Yeah.
And this again, a really great comedic moment. He's like, we know about the hoax. We took a bunch of your friends in a paddy wagon.
He's still trying to prove to himself that. Yeah, he's still trying to prove that it's a hoax.
Yeah.
I think that he's still just hoping that something extraordinary isn't going on. It's like his whole new worldview depends on this thing can't be real.
Yeah.
And so he's still trying to, we took your friends down in a paddy wagon. Yeah.
And he's like, paddy wagon. So he goes and then he tries to look under. He can't see anything. And then he gets the knife, which a
This
great
is
shot again.
I still feel the tension from this. I know what you're talking
Oh,
about. In the theater, the sound hit a lot harder with
it
this
did.
when the hand comes out.
Yeah.
But where I feel the tension is with him looking with the knife, with the
Yes.
looking in the reflection, because we know someone's in there. And then when he gets down and looks under the crack of the door, and we don't see any feet. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah. It's like, what's going on?
What happened to the person that was in
Yeah.
there? Then he
But
gets this
then
knife and is looking under there. And I'm thinking like he's going to move this knife around and all of a sudden
and
there's going to be
see.
like a
Yeah.
face or there's going to be
Yeah.
like, and I'm holding my breath and there's still nothing there.
No. But then he decides like, okay, I'm done. And then we cut, I think this is what we cut to Meryl.
Yeah.
So we leave that scene.
Yeah,
We go to
yeah.
Meryl, and this, I still love this scene
Yeah, and
because the
some
score comes in.
people don't like this about this movie. They don't
Yes.
like that we see the aliens. They feel like the movie would have been better if it had all been suggestion.
I disagree. I disagree.
I don't know how I feel about it one way or another, but I don't mind it. And I
feel like
it's vague enough. It's not like
Yeah.
Independence Day where we're like, here they
No.
are, and here's the, it's still.
Yeah. I think this is a situation where M. Night Shyamalan, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
If he didn't show them, people would be mad. Why didn't we see the aliens? What do they look like? Why aren't they there? And you show them like, yeah, I get why people don't like seeing them, but I like that we see them. I wanted to see them.
And I still think that the way that we see them is vague enough that I'm still kind of going like, I'm seeing like a shadowy or blurry figure. It's still, this footage is very, I mean, like literally they're basing it off of like the famous Sasquatch footage of like the guy and like where it's blurry and you pause the image and you can see that whatever's walking at this footage from this Brazilian birthday party is not human.
Yes.
And it seems to also be camouflaged with it's like in this bush, and then it comes out of the bush and it like, so that's what we
kind
learn.
Of walks and like looks, and then they pause it. But the thing that I love about this scene is Joaquin Phoenix's reaction, because it's building up. There's like all these kids are like speaking, in a different language, and they're talking, and you can tell that they're scared. Mm-hmm. And then you see the alien, Joaquin Phoenix is like, "Vamonos, kids, vamonos."
Yeah.
And you see the alien, and then he like recoils in fear.
Yeah.
Right. And he screams and he covers his mouth, and he's like, you could tell he's terrified, which in the theater, I hear people screaming, right? Yeah. When you see the alien, which made it amazing. But even just his reaction makes us feel like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
Well, it's this feeling too of just like, if like you try to put yourself in the reality of this happening, the international news, every channel on TV for the last 2-3 days has been going, this is happening. We have lights in the sky that are confirmed to be of extraterrestrial origin, and crop circles all over the world that we assume have to do with this as well. But no one has seen one yet. And they're going, we've got a video of one of them. And you're waiting, you're looking. And you're thinking that like, it's just going to sort of walk from behind a wall or something. But it comes out of this bush, and it's like, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Yeah.
So we see that. Then we cut back again to Mel Gibson, and he decides to go back, and he looks under. I might be getting the order of these wrong, but he goes back. He gets his knife, and he's going to look again. But as he gets down, the hand comes out and tries to grab him. He freaks out, and he's like, "Oh!" And then he somehow grabs the knife and cuts off 2 fingers of this alien, right?
Which also we get it's like a monster hand. Like it's like and also you can sort of see when this hand comes out that it's blending in with its surrounding environment. Yeah, it's sort of got the
Now I put in the notes in the theater. Everybody was screaming so loud at this scene when the hand came, and it went very fast in the theater, and it was amazing. And now watching this at home, there's no music. And it's just pretty quiet. You just hear the sound effects, which I like. I do wonder though. Oh man, would it be more intense with music? But it was a different theater experience than it was just at home watching it.
I kind of like it silent because it's so it's like it's just like the sound of the hand going.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
It's so like jarring, and he does that several times with different hands. That there are like several hand gags in this movie going into the third act finale.
Yeah.
I'd say that this is probably what launches off the third act, is this encounter at the pantry, and like, you know, it's like now they're here and here we go.
He goes back, and he does admit, he tells his family, like, they're all wearing tinfoil hats.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah.
And he's like, listen, I just ran into one. We need to decide what we're going to do. Like, I've heard that they don't like water. We can either go to the lake or we can board up our house and just kind of hunker down here. Yeah. And they kind of get in an argument, but everybody else votes to stay because this is where mom was, right? That's what Morgan says. So they decide to stay and kind of board up all the windows and kind of wait it out and see what happens.
This whole sequence is really interesting. So they board up the whole house. This is a very Shyamalan's doing a big reference to The Birds here by Alfred Hitchcock, like where they decide to kind of hunker down in this house and board up all the doors and windows. But this whole final sequence where they're boarding things up and he's talking to his kids about the stories of when they were born, and we can hear the aliens on the roof and coming in, but also with this last meal scene and everything like that, where he says, what does everyone want to eat? And they sort of have their last meal. It's interesting because it feels like, even though they're going through the effort of boarding up the windows and the doors, Mel Gibson's character seems like he is pretty resigned to the fact that they're going to die. Yeah. He doesn't really seem to believe that he and Meryl are going to be able to protect his children. He feels, it seems like his character is pretty resigned to the reality that this is it for them. That, you know, he just doesn't have a lot of faith. He just doesn't have anything to lean on, to believe in. So he just kind of is like, I think, you know.
Yeah, they all sit at the dinner table and he's like, why is nobody eating? And Morgan's like, well, should we say a prayer? And this is when he really lashes out. He's like, no, we are not saying a prayer. Right. And he's like, I'm not going to spend one more minute on God. Like, it is done. Right. And he gets really upset because I think you're totally right. Like, he's given up. He's pretty much like, I think we're going to die. So, and
he's like, I voted to go to water. You guys didn't want to go to water, but you wanted to stay here. That's fine. We're all going to die together. So we made everyone's favorite meal for the last meal. But like, you know, I'm not praying. I'm not.
And he says, I'm not praying. He makes it very clear. And then he starts to cry. Everybody starts to cry. And then Morgan gets up and goes and gives him a hug. He says, I hate you. And then he's like, that's fine. Right. And then they all have this moment. They all just break down. And they all hug each other, which was it's a really kind of a intense scene, but it ends up really, I don't know, it's done really well. Yeah. I really felt the emotion in this one. Like, man, that is rough. Like,
again, Mel Gibson is he's really, really like come into play in this movie as an actor. He's really like doing a great job. Yeah. And so then they go through the sequence of finishing boarding up the house, and he tells the kids the stories of how they were born, and it's really sweet. It's really cute. But again, he's doing this because in his mind, this is it. Like, so he just wants to tell his kids a happy memory about, you know, the day they were born and their mom and, you know, and soothe them. But he doesn't believe that they're going to make it out of this situation. They realize that,
I think, you know, I don't think he thinks it, but I think he is trying. I think he's trying, but he's trying with his own skills and with everything, right? Like, he's very much like, I don't believe in God and I don't believe, but
you know, I always say that I want modern movies that come out. The thing I miss is special features. I miss deleted scenes and making of featurettes. And I wish that when a movie went to streaming, like if it winds up on Netflix or Max or whatever, I wish they would have with the movie a little put the special features in there. Like, give me the deleted scenes. Give me the, you know, like, I miss that stuff.
Would be great.
There's a great deleted scene in this movie where because they realized, we forgot to board up the attic door. Yeah. And there's a great deleted scene where Meryl and Graham go and grab a boudoir and they try to like put it underneath, or like a wardrobe or something. They try to put it underneath the attic door, and the door starts slamming against the wardrobe, and it's like slamming and it's but like, I think he just made the decision, you know what, let's just get them into the basement. We've done enough. building up of the scary noises and stuff. But I still wish when I watch this movie to this day, when there's that camera shot of the attic door, I would love, as they start moving toward the basement, to see the door start to open. I think it'd be a really cool detail if the door just started to open, and then, you know,
because they're coming through the attic door and they walk out and they see the hand come under the door.
Yeah,
which is a great shot. Like,
great
I like
shot.
That. I would like to see that open.
A few fun things of like you know, like the door starts to open, and now we are definitely, their house is besieged by aliens. They're down in the basement. The aliens are trying to get into the door. Meryl's looking for something to prop the door open up.
Mel Gibson is holding the door, and he said that they're really trying to get in. He says, "I'm not ready." Yeah. Right? I'm not ready. So he holds the door. Meryl finds an axe. He's like, "Oh, I found it." And he takes it off the top shelf and he hits the light out, which I thought was great too, because it just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like, what's going on?
It's very like Clarice in the Silence of the Lambs when the lights go out, when she's in,
you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, when she's in Wild Bill's or Buffalo Bill's basement at the end of end of the movie. Yeah, and it's like there's nothing scarier in a climax of a movie in a basement than for the lights to go out. It's like
it goes out, and then someone finds flashlights and they turn the lights on, and you see that they've got it. They've got everything.
They've got the axe under the door. The door is secure, but Mel Gibson remembers that they used to pour coal in the basement, so they're looking for where's the coal chute, because they're going to figure out a way to get down here. And this is a great shot. There's a great shot. There's a great wide of the basement where both the flashlights are sort of converging on this one corner. And they get to the corner, and Morgan, Rory Culkin, is standing there, and he's up against the coal chute. And even though I like this practical effect of this.
Oh, I love it.
This camouflage black alien hand. It's terrifying.
Oh, it's this freaked me out so bad in the theater.
There's so many good references here, because this feels a lot like the end of Ridley Scott Alien, where the xenomorph is on the ship with her, and it's just in plain view for that whole sequence, and then we can't really see it because it's sort of blending in with all of the equipment on the ship, and then it just slowly gets up, and it's been there the whole time. And I like that this shot sort of holds on Morgan, and the hand is in the shot, but you can't see it because it's blending in with the door, and then it just slowly
moves and grabs his face. And then the lights go out again, right? And the flashlight kind of spins. You hear all this commotion going on. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what has happened, but then you can tell that they're fine. They're fine. I think Bo grabs the light and turns it on, and we see that, which we forgot to mention this, but Morgan has asthma, and you see that at the very, very beginning.
Whole movie he's been sucking on his inhaler, and
so he's having an asthma attack. Mel Gibson is trying to calm him down. He's trying to calm him down.
They left his medicine upstairs. They forgot to bring it into the basement with them. So he's got to sort of, and this is another just great acting from Rory Culkin here, and great acting from Mel Gibson here. Just a fantastic moment where this father is trying desperately to save his son's life and help him with his breathing, and it's just fantastic. And he's also having this sort of angry confrontation with God, and
he says, "I hate you," and he really hates. He's talking to God. And he's just breathe. He says, "Breathe with me, Morgan. Feel my chest. Breathe with me. It'll pass. Don't worry." And it does ultimately pass. And then Meryl's like, "We better save the lights." So they all go to sleep.
And we have another flashback to the car accident, right? Yeah.
And oh man, I don't even remember where this one ends, but we get more information.
I think we get the full conversation here. So, and there's a great little, another great acting little beat here from Mel Gibson, where she explains to him what's happening. And this is where the audience, we actually understand. Ray Reddy's truck hit her while she was walking, pinned her against a tree, and it basically severed her body in half. And the truck is holding her body together, but they know once they move the truck, all of her guts are going to fall out of her torso, and she's going to, it's pretty gruesome. But she's pinned in such a way that she's still conscious and she can talk. And so Mel Gibson has this great little acting beat here where he says, she goes, do you understand what I'm telling you, Father? And he says, are you telling me this is the last time I'm going to talk with my wife? And she goes, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And it's like, but the way that it's great. Fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So then he says that, and then he wakes up and we see Meryl, and we hear the radio.
I also like this beat though, because he goes over to talk to her. Oh no, we don't know what we don't do that yet. That's later. Yeah. So we hear the radio. Yeah.
We hear the radio, and the guy's on there and saying like they basically were here to harvest humans.
Mm-hmm.
They were they were killing a bunch of people, and they were just taking them.
They learned that they were using toxic gas. Yeah.
Yep. They can emit somehow.
Yeah.
And which is and he's like, there's a few stragglers, which again is kind of a setup. So
yep.
And then Meryl tells,
but they're leaving.
They're leaving. They're going.
The headline is they've left. Something scared them. Something happened, and they're leaving.
Yeah, they're getting out of here. And then Meryl tells him like, listen, I don't ever want to see you like that again, which again, really good acting here by Joaquin Phoenix. Like, I don't want to see my big brother with no hope. Like, you've got to change. You can't be like that, you know?
Yeah, whatever it is. It's like, he's not even necessarily saying you need to be a preacher again. He's saying the fact that you just have no faith in anything. That, like, you just have like I saw you last night. You didn't think we were going to make it. Yeah. Like you weren't even ready to fight. You know, and he's just like, I just don't want, come on, man. Like, these are your kids. And,
he really calls out his brother, which is very effective because he's younger. And he says, I've never seen my older brother like that. You know, you're everything I want to be. Really good scene. But they have the baby monitor. They listen to it and they're like, we got to give him a shot. And they listen to it for like 2 seconds and they're like, oh, good enough for me. So they go upstairs, which I thought was really funny. Yeah. They go up, they check out the house. Everything seems to be okay. Morgan is awake, and they're like, Bo's like, oh, everybody's dancing in the streets. So he's like, let me go get the TV. He goes to get the TV. He brings the TV out, which again, this is great. He moves the TV, and we see that an alien has Morgan in his hands. He's holding him. We only see the reflection at this point.
And this is a great shot. Oh, great shot. It's terrifying. This is also like something that like, this was one of those shots that stuck with me. I feel like Shyamalan had a lot of these in his first few films where like these shots that would really stick in your mind. Because every time I would see as a kid, our TVs aren't really as reflective these days as they used to be. But when you had those sort of like rounded TV screens and you turn it off and it would, I mean, that it's like, it sticks with me, this shot of the alien reflected. And again, he's not showing us at any point in this entire sequence a really clear view of it. It's sort of, again, dealing with it the same way that Ridley Scott sort of deals with the xenomorph in Alien, where we never really get a full clear shot of it. It's always sort of in shadow or, it's
kind of like the Jaws effect as well.
Yeah.
The less you show, the better. And the reflection is a great way to do that because you just more see the silhouette. Yeah. But it's still terrifying, and so then everybody freezes. They're all just sitting there. Meryl comes in, he drops the medicine and everybody is freaked out. And then this is when, I mean, the score on this, the building score is just amazing. And then he has a flashback, the score goes up and then we cut to see, I think this is when you have a wide shot. Like you get a really wide lens and everything's kind of distorted.
It's similar to the shot of his face when at the beginning, when he goes, I don't hear my kid, Yeah.
Yeah. And then we cut back to the actual scene between him and his wife. And is a really great scene. Mel Gibson's trying to hold it together. His wife is obviously going to die.
What's interesting about this scene is that like she's quite lucid. Like she's like, hey, here's what I want you to tell the kids. Yeah. Tell Bo this. Tell Morgan this. Yeah. And then the way that he relayed what she said to Meryl is he said her last words were "see, swing away." Yeah. That's not what she said. She goes, "Tell Graham to see." To see.
She she emphasized it, to see, right? Yeah. Like I like the delivery on that line. Yeah. And then she said, tell Graham, and he's like, I'm right here. Yeah. And then tell Meryl to swing away. Yeah. And so and then it cuts to their conversation again between Meryl and Graham, and Graham is saying, well, there's two kinds of people. The one who think that it's all everything happens for a reason. So you gotta decide which group are you again. And then it cuts back to Mel Gibson, and he starts to see this is one of the best payoff moments in a movie that I can think of. Because again, this whole movie has been setting up for this exact moment. And it delivers. Like, for me, it delivers like
some
crazy.
People find this really, really hokey and cheap and heavy, but I'm like, it's the entire screenplay.
That's the point of the movie.
The whole everything that happens in the movie is for this moment. Is for this, and I think it lands incredibly well. It's definitely like Shyamalan was doing this convention in a lot of these early films where he would do the sort of recap of things that you'd already seen in the movie. And I do think that maybe he went to this well one too many times, like going forward in his filmography, but it's still very effective the way that it's used here. But like, it feels like one of these moments where time is slowing down for our main character, and all of a sudden he's becoming aware, oh my God, every little insignificant, innocuous thing that's happened in my life that I thought was of no consequence is all culminating in this moment.
Yes.
And
I agree. A lot of people don't like it. I love it because it is. And this isn't a twist. This is just good storytelling where it's good setup, and now you have the payoff. Which is why I love it, and I will always love this payoff.
We also see that the alien is spraying the toxin into
So first he's sitting there, and I love this camera move because it comes back to Mel Gibson, and he starts turning, and the camera's turning with him, right? Because he needs to see everything. So he sees the bat on the wall. And he tells,
but it's a shot of Meryl with the bat over his shoulder, and it's like this perfect line of Meryl to the bat.
And he says, Meryl. He looks back at the alien. He says, Meryl, swing away. And Meryl looks at him. He says, swing away, Meryl. He looks back at the bat. He grabs the bat, and then he sprays. And then the alien sprays the toxin or whatever into Morgan's mouth, and you see it going. And then Bo screams. And the alien turns to the girl. Meryl comes up and just smacks him in the back. He drops Morgan. Mel Gibson goes and picks him up, grabs Bo. They grab the medicine and they run out of the house. And then this scene is great. Everything again just culminates amazing with the score, the shots. Meryl is going after this alien, and he hits him against the chest or whatever, and the water spills on the alien, which this is really the only shot that we see of the alien directly. And it's really quick. It's really fast, but we see that the water from Bo's glasses that are all over actually this water's sort of corrosive to their skin, to the alien, This is a thing. We'll talk about this once we get, because we're close to the end of the movie here, but we'll talk about this in a little bit. But it turns out, water is the thing that does them in. They've got water all over the house. So Meryl starts just hammering away at these water glasses and just spraying this thing with as much water as he can, culminating in him hitting him into a thing that drops like 12 glasses of water on its head. And I love the shot of Bo coming up to the window. And I don't know, I love the shot. She comes up to the window and she sees, again, kind of framing the alien, not getting close-ups, but seeing what Bo is seeing. And then he hits him down, all the water, and the alien is dead for sure. We run outside, and Graham gives the shot to Morgan, and he keeps saying his lungs were closed. The poison didn't get in. His lungs were closed. That's why he has asthma, right? And everybody's kind of freaking out, and Bo's even saying like, "Oh, I dreamed this," and they're great, It's just all very, very tense, and it draws out for as long as it needs to. But then Morgan says, "What happened? Did we win?" And really, I actually really like this scene between Morgan and Graham, because he's like, "Oh, did we win?" I can't remember. I think he said,
"Did somebody save us?"
Yes, he said, "Did somebody save us?" And Graham says, "Yeah, I think somebody did," which again goes into he doesn't say, "Yes, God saved us." All he says, "Yeah, I think somebody did," meaning, yes, I believe now. Like,
I will say, for me, this is another one of those things where I'm like, I don't need it. I don't need Morgan saying, "Did somebody save us?" and him saying, "Yeah, I think somebody did." I don't need it. I think it's a thing where I'm like, I think this is one of those things where I'm like, oh, you're just riding on that line of being a little too, because I'm just like, you can just have it that it's very clear that the character recognizes that nothing in his life has been an accident, that his son having asthma wasn't an accident, his daughter having this weird thing with water wasn't an accident, his brother being obsessed with swinging baseball bats wasn't an accident, and his wife telling him to see and to tell that she was somehow being given a vision of how Meryl could save the family's life. And I don't need him to say, I do think that somebody saved us in this, like, you know, I believe in God. Cause then we get the next cool little transition, which is the sort of epilogue of Graham coming out of the bathroom at the end of the movie. He's a preacher again. He's got his white collar on. He's throwing, and, you know, and the cross is back on the wall. And, you know, that's our little payoff. I think we can just do that without him.
Okay.
For me, I'm like, I don't need that exchange, but
I think you're totally valid. In what you think. I didn't bump on it. Because it was more like, I think somebody did. He's not, if he were to say, yes, I think God saved us, which is what you would do in a Christian movie.
Right.
I would have been like,
if this was a Kevin Sorbo, God's Not Dead movie, you know, well, the whole movie would have just been much, much worse. It would have had like insufferable atheist characters the entire time being like, aliens can't exist because the Bible's fake, you know, like, and it would be like, what are you, what?
So I think the fact that it was still like implying, I was fine with it, but I think you're totally valid in what you think. But anyway, it ends with that, and that's the movie.
Yeah. So here's the thing I was going to talk about is the memory I always have of this movie is I watched this once on a family vacation. I can't remember where we were with my cousins when it came out in the theaters. I know that I saw it with a group of friends too. I think we went and saw it with a group of our friends when we were in junior high.
I think we did. Yeah.
But I wound up watching it on a family vacation. My cousin Doug, who works for NASA now and is like one of the smartest people I know. I remember Doug being like, that was one of the stupidest movies I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, why didn't you like it? I was like, what's wrong with it? And he was like, you mean to tell me that this alien species was picking out a planet to come and get in a war with, to harvest this planet for their resources? And it's a planet that's 75% water, and water is their thing. And I was like, okay, sure. I think that there's a few things, and I totally think that is a valid story criticism.
It is to that point though, because that's a criticism I hear a lot.
Right.
And it is valid. It's fine if you think that. But
water,
for me, it just shows how desperate the aliens were.
That's what I think.
That's what I feel.
That's they feel like a very desperate. I think there's something really interesting about this species is like, they don't seem like they're advanced enough that they have like cloaking technology, and they have a different, you know, they have different biological advantages, like being able to spray poisonous toxin out of their bodies at us. They can camouflage themselves. They have these sort of tactical advantages, but they also seem to be like, if they are a species that is indeed looking for a planet to like take over, it might be because where they came from they've like used up all of the resources, and they're desperate. They are like wandering through space looking for potentially habitable homes, but they're not really like on their A game. Like, they've got some cool stuff, they've got some cool tech, but they might have to settle. Like, think about it. If it was us, if it was humans, and we're looking for a place, like, you know, the movie Interstellar, where it's like, we're looking for a potential new home. None of them are particularly ideal, but we're just looking for one that like could potentially work. And it might have a lot of things about it that are like, okay, well, there's a lot of ways for us to easily die on this planet, but we can actually set up workable colonies here. There's breathable air, and we can make it work. And I can see that being an easy workaround to that. Also, I just sort of, there's a War of the Worlds sort of tie-in where, like, you know, where War of the Worlds, the whole thing was just like that the Martians didn't realize that there were, you know,
bacteria,
microscopic bacteria that when they breathe them in are detrimental to their health. And I don't know, like, I kind of think that also there's sort of this fun fan theory. I don't know if you've heard this, that like the aliens in Signs can be interpreted as demons, that if we're going with this movie being full blown Christian, that like this movie, that the aliens are similar to, even in their design and in the way that they sort of present, that they're sort of invisible, like this invisible menace, that they're demons, and the water is like holy water, and like that the holy water is what sort of undoes them, and they're in this fight against a preacher and his family. And I see that as being something that's kind of fun.
It's an argument, you know, the water argument. It doesn't bother me because I do see it as desperate.
I also don't think it's the point of the movie.
Exactly.
Like, I don't think it's the point of the movie that it's like the aliens aren't actually the point. It's an alien movie that's not an alien invasion movie that's not actually really about the alien invasion. It's really about this family and like what the death of the mother, the matriarch of this family does to them, and what grief has done to them, and how in a crisis, the father has to sort of come back to believing in things that are bigger than him in order to save his family from this thing. But like the aliens are mostly sort of symbolic in this movie.
They're supporting the theme of the movie. So
it's not really about whether or not them being killed by water makes sense. It's like whatever, they're camouflaged.
And this is the thing. Let's stop taking movies so seriously. Like, this is fun. Like, and it worked. Like it was supporting the theme. Don't get too much into it. Like, it's an alien movie, first of all. So
like maybe they could have done something like, water mixed with like sugar. Like Bo really likes Kool-Aid, but she never finishes a glass of Kool-Aid. And that somehow that mixture of water mixed with whatever the hell is in Kool-Aid, that's what kills aliens. But I think people would be like, that's stupid. And it's like, who cares? Like the fact that it's water doesn't matter. It's what's fun is you spend the entire movie not really thinking, you just think it's a funny quirk that this little girl is putting water glasses all over the house, and it's cool. The payoff, it all is. This stuff that feels simple and innocuous. I
love it. So okay, should we get into the scale?
All right, scales, let's do it.
Okay,
so our scores for the audience, if this is your first time watching our show or listening to our show, we score our movies on a scale of 1 to 10 in technical. There's a technical score that is for like just the craft of filmmaking, storytelling, cinematography, visual effects, score, acting, all of the things that go into the technical craft of filmmaking. We give a score on the ending, how well we feel a film stuck the landing and the ending. We give a score for rewatchability, how likely we are to rewatch this, or how enjoyable a rewatch is. We give a score for cultural relevance. So that's just sort of what kind of cultural impact a movie had. And we give a subjective score, how we just like this movie as individuals. So my technical score for Signs, I give Signs an 8. There is as I said, I think Tak Fujimoto, I might even give it an 8.5. I don't know. Like I think this movie is pretty technically sound. There's not a whole lot of like fat on this movie. Every single moment feels really useful and important to the screenplay. As I mentioned, there's like a couple lines that I'm like, maybe that's a slightly stronger scene. If you lose that or lose, you just like one line away from that being a really well written scene. But those are really, really nitpicky things. Overall, I'm really impressed with the structure of this film. Me too. I feel like I want to show this to people to like the people at Clean Flicks and be like, here's how to make a movie about faith and about, like God and stuff that doesn't suck. Like, so I really liked it. I'm going to give it an 8.5 technically.
Okay. I gave it an 8 as well, all for the same reasons. Structurally, it's great. The music, the cinematography, there's a lot great about this movie. So pretty much just echoing what you said. So I'll give it an 8.
Not really a bad performance in it, to be honest. No. Everybody's just crushing. The ending I will give an 8.
Or we do rewatchability.
Rewatchability. Okay. All right. Rewatchability, 8. I've probably watched this movie 30 times in my life, and I enjoy it every single time. The most recent rewatch, I hadn't seen it in years. It'd probably been 10, 15 years since I'd watched Signs, and I was wondering if rewatching it, I was going to be like, oh, this isn't as good as I remember. And I was like, actually, I just think this is great. Like, I just think that I love that it's an original screenplay. I love that it's not based on anything.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a time in Hollywood where that wasn't an anomaly. I even heard M. Night Shyamalan talking about this recently, that like it used to be the norm that original movies were coming out every weekend.
Yeah.
And it was nice to just see a movie that was just an original screenplay, an original story. And
it really wasn't that long ago either. I mean, this came out in 2002. It really kind of changed around 2008-ish, 2012-ish, you know, that area, it started getting into that. But yeah, I love that this was an original movie as well. Rewatchability for me, excuse me, I gave it an 8.5.
Yeah.
I can rewatch it. I think it you notice a lot more on the rewatches, so it's great. I gave it an 8.5.
Yep. Ending?
Yes. Ending. You want me to start?
Yeah, I said an 8, so you go
ahead.
ahead.
Use it. Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I gave the ending a 10.
Okay, yeah.
I think, and I'm being very generous with that, but just, I think the fun that I have with it, the fact that this movie, like I said, is an entire buildup to a payoff. The payoff is so intricately weaved throughout the whole story that the ending is everything in this movie. And it's okay if you don't like it, but I loved it, and I got the same excited feeling every time that I've watched it. Like, it's just fun to watch, and it really sticks the landing. So I give it a 10.
It's always really fun when a movie is like this is still when M. Night Shyamalan was still like, I mean, the reason why he became known as like the twist master is that and it became this thing where you'd go and watch his movies and you would try to be paying attention to every little detail you possibly could, because he would always find a way to bring all of those details back at the end and make them all pay off. And sometimes that works better than other times in his films. Sometimes the payoff feels like it's a little bit richer. This movie, you're right. It really is like I think this movie, he pulls off the magic trick of making it just seem like he's doing idiosyncratic character things that don't really like, the kid's got asthma and that's good. We can use that as a plot device. Like, they're going to forget his medicine and that's going to create tension. And that's why he has asthma. But there's actually a better reason why he has asthma that's going to come up later that you're not thinking about. And the whole like, oh, Bo, is afraid of contaminants and stuff like that could just be a residual thing from like her mom dying, that she's just afraid of like, what, and it like, or it just could be an idiosyncratic thing that just creates a fun character vibe. But you don't think that this stuff's going to pay off the way it does. Having them have the scene where they talk about Meryl being this kind of like strikeout king in baseball seems almost like it's just explaining why Meryl lives with his brother and why Meryl, and it adds layers to that character, but you're not really expecting that to become such an integral part of the climax.
Yeah.
It's really cool unexpected. The way that he brings all of this stuff, and the fact that it comes from our main character who has been having a faith crisis, all of a sudden see everything opening up and him going, oh, everything in my life has been building toward this moment right here.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually going to amend my score and say 9, because I think you're right. This movie really, this screenplay really does a nice job of earning all of this, and using all of the stuff that leads up to it.
Yeah.
Cultural significance for this film. I think for a minute there, Signs really did a thing in Hollywood. There was like an influx of alien horror films that were more just sort of pure genre flicks. But I think that Signs is kind of a forgotten Shyamalan movie. So I'm going to put this as a 7. Okay. And I think that people forget about this movie.
It was big when it came out, when, in 2002, when we saw it. I gave it a 6.5 because I agree. I think it's kind of forgotten. It was big when it came out, but it was very divisive. Like we've talked about, there's a lot of people that don't like it, a lot of people that don't see it, which is totally fine. I think it was impactful, but it hasn't stayed as impactful as The Sixth Sense, especially in today. So I think 6.5.
Yep. And our subjective score, solid 8 from me. I really like this movie. Obviously, I gotta reserve my 9s and 10s for like my favorite films of all time. But
I know.
but this is really good. I really like this movie. I think it's a really, really solid watch, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah. I gave it a 9.
Yeah.
Because I just had so much fun watching it again, and it's very impactful for me. When we saw it, it was great. So subjectively, I think it's a 9. I loved it.
I'm sure as a father now, it really hits completely differently, and
it does actually. Yeah, and especially when Bo looks exactly like my daughter and sounds like my daughter,
right?
It made it a little bit different. You know, it kind of hit a little bit differently this time.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Oh my goodness, Signs.
All right.
By M. Night Shyamalan. If you've seen it, let us know how. What do you think about Signs?
Yes.
And do you agree with us or disagree with us? Is the water thing cool or stupid? Let us know. And also, if you would, just like, share, and comment, and subscribe, and do all of those things. And yeah, we'll see you at the next one.
Yep. Thanks for watching.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.